Let me share with you a few examples of deposits and withdrawals into the emotional bank account. The first and most important deposit: kindness and courtesy. The opposite, of course, would be unkindness and discourtesy. A second deposit: make and keep promises. The opposite of that is don't make promises, or make them and break them. To make and keep a promise essentially lets the other person know you can be counted upon. You're dependable. You will come through. There is no ability like dependability. You gave your word, you kept it. The circumstances changed, you kept it. The mood changed, you kept it. You come through. If the circumstances change to the point that it would be unwise to keep that promise, you immediately communicate and get them to understand those new circumstances so that they will relieve you of the promise. Be very careful before you ever make a promise, particularly if it's about a promise dealing with something that's terribly important to another, that is of jugular importance. Be very careful. The withdrawal is not to make any promises at all, though, because you create no hope. That is a withdrawal as well. Not as big, though, as making one in order to placate someone, to kind of have them be satisfied right now, and then to break it downstream because your mood has changed or the circumstances have altered, or you just don't want to keep it and you just made it because you wanted to please them at the time. Insecure people make promises freely and quickly all of the time. Another very powerful deposit is the way that you manage expectations. You want to make sure that expectations are clear and unambiguous. Some people, particularly if they're rather immature and insecure, will read an expectation as a promise. So you have to be very explicit to manage expectations. If you sense that people implicitly are projecting expectations upon you, sometimes you have to say, let me clarify the expectations so that people are at peace. The withdrawal is to have unclear expectations, unidentified expectations, ambiguous expectations, unacknowledged expectations that lie implicit inside people. Our frustrations are a product of our expectations, and we control our expectations. Therefore, we indirectly control our frustration or our satisfaction. Another extremely powerful deposit strikes at such a deep tendency that many of us have, having to do with being a judge. I call this deposit loyalty to the absent. The withdrawal, of course, would be disloyalty and duplicity. Always be loyal to those who are not present. Speak about them as if they were present. If you're critical, the spirit is one of constructive criticism, one of helpfulness or understanding. You see, the moment the two of us sit and badmouth our supervisor here, what do you know I'm doing when there's a strain on our relationship? What am I doing? What do you think I'm doing? Well, if there's a strain in our relationship and I'm talking to him about you, what am I doing?
Doing the same thing.
Exactly. That he and I did about him.
I see.
You see, it is not principle-centered. He knows it. He knows my tendency. So that when we speak about the one who is absent in a way that would show respect for him, even if we're critical of him, but in a constructive, positive way, what does he know I'm saying when visiting with him? who was critical of him, that I would do the same thing. In other words, if you want to retain those who are present, be loyal to those who are absent. Now, when the sun is shining and you sit and kind of badmouth somebody, it kind of unites you, doesn't it? Kind of cements your relationship, because see, you have a common enemy, as it were, or someone that you both agree on and you can tear into, see? Kind of unites you, and you look for evidence, and then you have breaks and talk about the person, and maybe even have lunch over that person's sins and share each other's stories. Make your mind up. And if you're into team building, if you're into culture building, if you're into family building, make a commitment, everybody. If there's any difficulty with another person, what do? Go directly to the person. You don't talk behind their back. I was failing this one time, complaining to the university president of a university that I was a visiting professor at about his housing director, who had given us such a bad housing situation, contrary to our agreement and expectation. And I was really cutting into the guy, his competency. And the president said, "Stephen, I'm so sorry to hear about this housing situation you're in. The housing director is such a fine, competent person. Why don't we have him come on over here and we'll solve the problem together?" Oh, no. I don't want to be involved. See, I didn't say that because that would be obviously so irresponsible. But, that's how I felt inside. Oh, I don't want to talk to him. I want to talk about him. This president, he just was matter-of-fact and pleasant, and as the gentleman was coming across campus to the president's office, I was going through this internal dialogue. Oh, what have I got myself into now? I'm probably responsible for part of the miscommunication. Maybe we got what was agreed. I don't know what the situation is. Honestly, I was so humbled. By the time he arrived there, how are you? Good to see you. The president could see my duplicity. 10 minutes before, what incompetence. There's just no carry-through with the original commitment. Then, how are you? A double-minded person is unstable in all his ways. Duplicity. Another major deposit. If you blow any of the above, learn to apologize. The withdrawal is pride. Learn to apologize. I was wrong. That was unkind. I saw my son the other day cutting into his little sister for cleaning up his desk. He had it all organized to do his project. Took him a long time. She came in intending to help her brother and organizes it and cleans it up for him. She thought that was a deposit. See, to him it was a withdrawal. He starts really laying into her, and in the middle of his criticism, he caught himself. Oh, I shouldn't take my frustrations out on you. I'm sorry. I know you meant well. And I watched that and I thought, that takes real presence. That takes real maturity, real respect, a lot of personal security, that he can, in the middle of his anger, take control over it. The ability to apologize, to forget and forgive, to let go of resentment. One of the most liberating and freeing things possible. But it's also an enormous deposit to another person.